Okay. All right. I'm here with Victoria Collins Pacaud. We're going to talk about Jack's restaurant. First of all, can you just tell me a little bit about what Jack's restaurant was and your relation to Jack's restaurant?
Yeah, okay. Jack's restaurant was my grandfather's restaurant, and it was very popular in those days. And it had a big dining room for the family, 103 West 43rd Street. And that was sort of the family part of it. And it had two tables on each, tables on each side of the dining room with very fancy pictures over everything. Great big pictures, like 6 by 9 maybe.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, and I'll have to think of the name of the artist.
Simmons,
Simmons, yeah. The artist was named Simmons, and he made all those pictures for my grandfather because he owed him money from eating there all the time and charging it, and he couldn't pay it. He was having difficulty with his finances. And it was a great big one as you came in from the 103 West 43rd of two, I think it was two women, and they were in, they weren't nude, but they were suggesting nudiness. They were in sort of, long white sort of
flowing robes and things.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, and they're very pretty faces, and their figures, what you could see of them was very good too. And the pictures in the restaurant were lovely in that room, and there's mostly family room. And then when you walked out of the family room, you could walk into the men's bar, and in the men's bar there was a long bar on the 6th Avenue side, where the men could stand up to and drink. And then there was a cabinet in the middle of the room which had cookies, not cookies, but cakes and things that I like.
I see.
Yeah, and the men, and then there were tables up the side, one side, and tables on the other side, and the men used to gather in there after football games, and then they got too rowdy, and then Grandpa would throw them out, and he had two big guys that had been ex-prize fighters, and they'd take them and put them in the elevator that went around like that, and they'd end up on 6th Avenue.
I see.
And then they'd get themselves up, and they'd come around to the 103 and try to get in again, and Grandpa would be there waiting for them, and he'd let them in if they promised to behave.
I see.
And then they would promise to behave, and sometimes they did, and of course sometimes they didn't, and then they didn't get a second chance. It's just the one chance to get in. And Grandpa had a lot of fun with this, I think. Anyway, that was that. And let's see.
So you started going there as a young girl?
Yeah, I used to go there from the time I was, say, 5 or 6, and have dinner.
Okay.
With Margaret, who was just taking care of me, because Mother loved her father very much, and she used to stay up there in the apartment that was above the restaurant with him a great deal, and Dad and Mother were divorced at this point, and he went over to Italy, and was there for a number of years, and quite a few years, like 15 or so. So then that was more or less the story, and The next door was a beauty parlor that they used to send me to get my hair cut after somebody had already butchered it, so that they couldn't do much about it. And somebody, I don't know how, I can't remember how I got it, but I got that disease where they're all biting in. And
lice?
I guess.
Yeah.
And Grandpa was furious about that. And so he sent me to the hairdresser, which was right there, and they washed my head, of all things, kerosene.
Ooh, oh my
God. And I jumped, it was awful. It was terrible. And he wasn't pleased with that. And said he was going to raise their rent. Yeah, and he wouldn't pay for the thing or anything else. No, it was a big deal. And then they washed it again, and of course it stopped stinging. But it was awful. You can imagine. But of course it did kill the...
It worked,
did its
it
job,
worked.
yeah.
Okay, well at least it worked.
So they were pleased about that.
Yeah.
And let me see what happened next. The Elks Club was near there. I think it was across the street. No, I don't think so. I think it was on the 43rd Street side. And he used to go there. It was either on the same side as his entrance, or it was across the street. Probably across the street, but I can't quite remember. And he used to go over there, see some of his pals, and have a few drinks, which wasn't a good idea, but he did it anyway. Yeah. And Mother was very upset when he drank, because sometimes he'd drink and then he'd get sick, from it, and she'd have to get him back on his feet. So she didn't like that so much.
No, that's
that
not
fun.
fun.
So her idea of fun. And so that was the way it went. And let me see what else I can tell you about.
Do you remember?
It had a children's room which had pictures of riding around it. That's the one. The men's bar was here, and the children's a family room was called, and they had pictures of the Red Riding Hood. And the other one, on the other side of the bars thing, had pictures of, I'll think of them later, I don't know what they were pictures, but they were also children's pictures. So they used family rooms, so they used to go in there, the families with the kids.
That's where you would spend most of your time?
Yeah, no, I was privileged. I used to get in the one right around the corner, the furthest stairs. And a lot of the times I called down, and they'd send it up, especially the ice creams and things. And Grandpa would say, "Who's that calling?" "Your granddaughter, Mr. Johnson." "And what does she want?" "She wants a sundae and ice cream and cake and he said, "I thought so." So then in a few minutes you'd hear him come up the stairs, and the stairs were very long and just, steep, but he'd struggle up to and said, "I see you're having some, cookies and things." "Oh yes, Grandpa. I called down." He said, "I know." But he didn't object. "Let the child have them," he'd say to Mother, "She's only a child, and she's only going to be a child once." All that stuff,
So you had a pretty good deal with it.
Oh, yeah. And in back of that, when he came up into a little foyer, like, and it had a piece of furniture, with glass and all, and in it were all kinds of little knickknacks that I wanted to get my paws on, but he kept it locked all the time, and I couldn't even touch them. It was something that they were like little boxes and all kinds of things from all over the world. And he didn't wish my cotton-picking fingers to get there. And so then, and then on this side was the dining room, and back of that was a, sort of gravel thing, and then back of that was a building which had all the liquor for the restaurant and for himself and so on. And that's what the police came in Prohibition and said that he was selling it, and he said he wasn't, that possibly the waiters were putting it in teacups and things, and possibly he knew all about that too.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Teacups, and so they got liquor in the teacups, but then there were two very famous men that raided all the restaurants and got them arrested and so on. And when Grandpa came up for the weekend to Milligan, Mother said, Papa, you must be careful because they're going to raid you next. They said they're going to raid a famous restaurant. So, of course they did.
And then they did.
So, and they did, and they took all his liquor down and said that he was selling it in the restaurant. And he had a man who was not, he was not a lawyer then, he was less than a lawyer, but he knew all about the law. He was Grandpa's defense, and the opposing lawyer asked Grandpa what he intended to do with that liquor if he wasn't selling it. And he says, I hope to drink it before I die. This place packed with, about half the size of this room.
Oh, man. He was ambitious, I guess.
And so, of course, that hit the headlines of the Times. Jack Johnson says, I intend to drink it before I die. So that was the answer he gave. And I don't know what much more, but he used to go in, and he'd get dressed in his dinner jacket around 4, and then he'd go around the corner to where there was a florist and get his white carnation that he always wore.
Ah, I see.
And he'd put that on, and then he'd come back and he'd walk around the dining rooms and talk to the people and all that sort of thing. And he spent most of his time in that dining room that was an entrance from 103 west to 43rd Street. He didn't spend so much in the other two, but he would go in and see the children each time, But he didn't spend a lot of time with the adults in there. He spent it in that one. And his grandson, Jack, who was, his mother had married twice, and Tip Watson, the present husband, was awful kind of mean to him. Of course, he was a bad boy, but still he was over mean to him. And so Jack was a bad fellow, and he got in the ladies' room, and he kept bringing out all kinds of things. And Grandpa was very annoyed with him. He brought out things for girls like Kotex. He said, what's this? And Grandpa said, I got a waiter to watch the door, and he wasn't allowed in there anymore. He used to go in with his mother, take everything out and put nickels in. Grandpa was furious.
That's it.
So
when he would get mad, people would generally, it was Grandpa's mad. You better watch out.
You better look out. He didn't get really mad often, but when he did, it was bad news.
It's bad news.
Yeah, he was a strong character. And Margaret and I, Mother had us at 64th Street between Madison and Park. I think it was 64th Street. Or no, it was 64 East, not. It was 54th was the school, and where I went to Convent of the Sacred Heart, and we were around the corner at an apartment, and Margaret and I were in that apartment, and Mother, when she could she wanted to be where he was, and so she'd go and take care of him, and she'd just come over and spend maybe the weekend there with us, and I lived with Margaret.
Uh-huh.
And Margaret would take us every night over to Grandpa's for dinner because she didn't have to cook. And,
Yeah, good deal.
and she could have anything she wanted. She liked the restaurant, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course the waiters made a fuss over me because I was the granddaughter, you know.
Right.
So I had a good time.
Absolutely.
And I was out. And then later I lived with Grandpa. I don't know how that came about, whether Margaret wanted more time off, and so I lived upstairs with Mother in the apartment.
Above the restaurant?
Yeah.
Okay.
And don't know the reason for it, but I did. And that was fine because, you know, I moved in on Grandpa and he had I don't know whether he bought me a bank or I bought it and put it in his room. You know, it was one of those banks like a little cash register, about that high.
Uh-huh.
And it took quarters only.
Okay.
You know, and he used to give me at night his change, and if there were any quarters, okay, or if I could get it made into quarters, and of course I was good at that.
Right.
And so, and you could go as far as $25. I mean, the bank was then full, and you couldn't put any more in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the trap door at the bottom was manageable. You could open it.
That's how
take
you
it all out.
get them back, I
You've
see.
seen those kind of things.
Yeah, yeah, they still have those
They're
around.
old-fashioned.
Yeah, those indeed.
And he'd go down at around 2 o'clock. Mother'd wake him up, and he'd get his bath and all that kind of thing, get dressed. And he'd go down and go around the corner and get his white carnation and come back, and he'd start his night then. Or maybe he'd go over to the outskirts for a little while and be around 5 or 6 when a lot of people came in for early dinner, you know.
So he would usually sleep pretty late because he'd been up, assumably pretty late the night before.
2, yeah.
Wow.
He'd sleep till 2 or 3 sometimes. Because he was, you know, it was exhaustion.
Yeah, it was open all night, the restaurant, yeah?
Yeah. And he was the only restaurant, I believe, I can't remember, that had an all-night license. And everybody asked him how he got it because nobody had one, could get one. And he said, "That's for me to know and you to wonder."
So that's
and they believed he had something on somebody, you know, that was high up. And he said, "Get me an all-night license and don't give one to anybody else." And he had, of course, that made him very popular.
That was key in the success of the restaurant, I'm sure.
Yeah. He was a good-looking man, about 6 feet tall, and gray hair and a white mustache, and he kept the mustache very. First, it was, you know, kind of long, and then the styles changed and it was very neat, you know.
Very waxed and...
Yeah, well, it was different. He had it different.
I see.
Yeah, he didn't do those little things.
Yeah, okay.
No. Just a natural one, sort of. But it was very, you know, he was good looking. And very red, because they used to ask him how he got his, you know, how his complexion was so good. They said it was like a child's or something. He said he picked it up in Ireland, where he was born, and you know, he had red cheeks, sort of like Santa Claus or something.
Do you remember any sort of specific time at the restaurant that was sort of stood out above the rest as a really fun happening?
Well, they closed it in the Prohibition, and of course that was terrible, and they took all this liquor down to the walls, you know, wherever they take it. And Mother got this young lawyer, George Donnellan, to try to get everything back, and Grandpa was wild. They got it out of his place there, and then he was a very smart young lawyer, and he beat them. They said the the lawyer for the governor or whatever he was, started yelling at Grandpa, and saying, "Did you do this, do that," thing. And Grandpa said, "Young man, are you trying to confuse me?" Because obviously he was,
Right.
And the whole courtroom burst out laughing. And "Don't try to confuse me, young man." And of course, from then on, the lawyer was sort of, he was through.
Yeah, took the wind out of his sails, yeah.
His Grandpa said it in a very commanding voice, "You try it, And so from then on, of course, the audience all laughed and clapped and things. And so Grandpa, of course, won the case, and
Right.
the liquor was all brought back. When it was brought back, he stood out in front of 103 and washed it in. They said, "What do you intend to do with all this liquor if you didn't sell it?" It was prohibition. He said, "I intend to drink it before I die." And they said, "It's an awful lot of liquor you drink." He said, "That's all right. It's from Ireland, and I'll drink it." Of course, he never did. It was,
He tried. He put a dent in it.
So he said, so the New York Times and Herald had Jack Dunstan says he's going to drink 25 cases or whatever it was of Irish whiskey before he dies, and he watched it all go back in, and he was very annoyed because some of it was water.
Really?
They'd opened it and taken the Irish whiskey and just filled the bottle with water. Oh, it was wrong. Got it back, but didn't get it back.
Yeah, some of it had been
Pampered.
I see.
And of course, it was, I guess, very expensive to buy from him, or I think, in those days or something.
Mm-hmm.
Half of it was water, and oh boy, the scoundrels, he said.
Scoundrels.
Yeah. Everybody that wasn't right was a scoundrel. Of course, as a child, I picked them up, and I'd say, "Grandpa, some scoundrel did this and some," and
Did he let you? Did he like that?
He
or?
let me. He was awfully sweet to me, and except I threw a train at him when I asked him if he had any other, or if he liked me best of all the grandchildren, and he said, "Darling, I like all of my grandchildren the same." And I said, "You don't mean that?" And he said, "Yes, I do." So with that, I threw the iron train, and of course it hit him on the head, and he went unconscious.
It knocked him out. He was unconscious?
And Margaret had to call the doctor up and all that kind of stuff. And we were up in Militant at that time. And
how old do you think you were at this point?
7, maybe, or 8 or
7.
something. And I was jealous, of course. And so I thought I was number 1. And I wouldn't have minded him saying the other grandmother, I wanted him to say I was number 1, and he didn't, like you all saying, "Oh boy." And when he came to and the doctor put the stitches in, he wasn't mad at me or anything. He just said, "I want you to listen. Jealousy is a terrible thing, and don't indulge in it." I remember that all my life.
Yeah.
I really did, because I thought, he could have been mad at me and not like me anymore or something. But he wasn't mad. He just said, "Darling, jealousy is a terrible thing, and don't indulge in it. It gets you in a lot of trouble, and it doesn't prove a thing."
Mm-hmm.
And so I always remember that. And, if I had a beau and he paid attention to somebody else or something, I overlooked that.
Yeah. You didn't let your mother.
I didn't want to get in that.
Right.
So, he got his what he didn't like, he did over, but in a very sort of quiet way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas mother, would pick you up and paddle you,
Uh-huh.
Which didn't, except get you mad at her, didn't get anywhere.
It didn't get anywhere.
He got his point out, and you did. I remember doing everything that he said. I took it quite seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was very kind, and he never told mother about when she came back and saw stitches. She said, "What happened to you?" And he said, "Oh, I bumped my head and something." And he said Margaret called the doctor, and he came upstairs, and he told the doctor not to tell her. She never knew what happened.
She never heard about
No, because she'd have killed me practically, because she adored him, and she wanted to be his favorite daughter, which of course was wrong too, because he used to say he loved all his daughters the same too, you know.
Right.
And she, of course, Mother thought she was number one because she lived with him and everything, and maybe she was in a way, but he never admitted it, you know. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
And he used to tell her that she should control her temper. She had a bad temper, Mom.
Bad temper.
You know. And he loved my father. They got along great, in spite of the fact that Mother divorced him, and of course he had other girls and things. And he said Ned has a lot to contend with. So there you go.
That's great. Do you ever remember specifically being excited about somebody who, because Hank was talking about, you know, a lot of sort of celebrities and sort of high stature people would come into the restaurant. Do you remember?
At that time, you know, I used to go to movies with Margaret or with Grandpa too, and he liked them, and we used to go to see The Thief of Baghdad, which was Douglas Fair, not the young one now, but the original one.
Mm-hmm.
And of course it was a wonderful picture because he was on a magic carpet, you know, flew over the cities, and also he was fighting with a sword. You know, I had a sword, by the way, and he stairs, you know, down the stairs and up the stairs. You know, it was a very exciting picture.
Right.
And Grandpa liked it too, and it was over on Broadway, and you know, you went down 43rd Street from the 43rd Street entrance, and you were on Broadway. And the theaters were all around there, and it was at one of the theaters, and Grandpa got seats, and we went to it, and he was very excited with it all too. We had a wonderful time. Mother began to get like a little jealous or something. She said, "What'd you do all afternoon?" And I said, "We went to a movie." And what movie? And Douglas Fairbanks, and The Thief of Baghdad. Well, she said, "That's just come out." And I said, "Well, Grandpa got seats anyway." And of course, he knew all the, you know, the people in behind in those places, and they'd save seats for, you know, and stuff.
Because they would come to the restaurant and stuff.
Yeah. So it was a very interesting time. And the restaurant was going full swing, you know. Send up pastries. After dinner ones, you know, big plate of it. But you're supposed to have one.
You would have a few though.
Yeah, I have a few, and then put in an icebox upstairs there. Mother was going out with beaux and things at that time because she and Dad were divorced. And she had a gentleman who was really crazy about it, and she wanted, I think she'd been wonderful if she married him, but his sister, they were Catholics, and his sister said, "If you marry him, you know, you're going to be out of the church," because she'd been married before and everything.
Right.
And so he told that to Mother, and she went to, I don't know, a priest or somebody, and he said, "Well, if you get the marriage annulled, you know, you can remarry in the Catholic Church and nothing else." So they were thinking about it, and then Mother said that would make me you know, nothing or something, you know, because I wouldn't have the background of the church or anything.
I see.
And so she decided not to do it. I always thought she should have, because this Mr. Johnson was at that time a young lawyer, but he became a judge, and then he became something else, you know. He was a very fine man, and he was crazy about her. And then when she told him that she wasn't going to marry him, And then he married somebody else eventually
I
for
see.
quite a while. He used to bring me presents. I got a book home in Berwyn, you know, it's Merry Christmas or Happy Days or something from Mr. Jones. You know, fairy stories.
Right, right. Absolutely.
She didn't have much privacy because I had braces on my teeth, and I'd go up to bed, and then, you know, maybe an hour later I realized I left my braces in the dining room or something.
Mm-hmm.
So then I'd come down, you know, with no warning or anything else, and just walk it down into the living room and to get the braces, and so, you know, if she'd been sitting next to her or anything else, it wouldn't have been nice, you know.
Right.
So she was. They were afraid to make any signs of love, I guess, because he was crazy about it. Because God knows when that brat will come.
Right, right.
Yeah, I don't know why I didn't call down and say, Mother, I want to come down. I forgot my braces. They're on the table in the dining room. And of course, they shouldn't have been out. They should have been in my mouth, you know.
Right.
So of course I wouldn't tell her. I have to get something for school or something.
Right, of course.
You know, I had more excuses than you can think. I can still do that.
You
though.
you
Yeah,
can
I
still
can
do that?
Yeah.
That's
Very
great.
good at it. I learned it in my youth.
Your youth, it stuck with you.
Yeah, that's my specialty. Oh, I loved it over there with Grandpa, you know. When are we going back to Grandpa?
Right.
And then Mother was anxious to be in the, you know, some of her friends had apartments on Park Avenue. She wanted to be, she did, you know, 6th Avenue and over the rest. She didn't like that act. So she wanted to be on Park Avenue like all her friends were that went to school and stuff.
I see.
And so he said, well, why don't you get an apartment? And she said, well, would you come over? And he said, maybe later when I retire, but not now. And of course she kept talking to him about retiring and all that kind of thing. He really didn't want to. And I don't think he should have, because, but he listened to her, and, you know, he was in his 70s, and he did, and he gave the restaurant to his son. And his son turned it into a modern restaurant, and the first 2 or 3 nights or a week or something, Grandpa came down like he always did with the white carnation dress on, and talked to all the people, went around like he always did. And then he said, well, you're all set, and, you know, and he didn't have Grandpa's personality at all, and he wasn't as good looking. And then the restaurant went right down, and so then Grandpa walked around again and came right up. I mean, half the people came to see him and talk to him, you know.
Right.
And Will just didn't have it that way. A nice man, but
Just didn't have the charisma.
didn't have the it.
I see.
Yeah. So it was, you know, it's like that. I don't think Grandpa should have retired because, you know, he was happy doing it, and he didn't get sick doing it. Well, he got sick sometimes, but that was when he had went on sort of a bender. But he didn't get sick, you know, on the whole. And you know, it was a sort of a system. I mean, every afternoon he'd get up, and go around and get his white carnation and talk to them there, and you know, it was
his routine.
A routine. And he liked the routine. And then after his mother took him up to Milton, and you know, he was bored, he started to read all the books. And when I married, Mrs. Collins said, don't you want a book to read? And I said, no. And I said, I read a book once. And so she said, well, you know, she said to Eddie, it's terrible that wife you married, she doesn't know anything, she never read a book or anything else, it's just disgusting. She left school early. And then the radio was the big thing then, you know. And the radio would say who was the artist that painted some picture, or who was the man that did this, that, and the other thing. And they'd say, and I'd say, no, no. And then I'd come out with the answer. Because when I was up there in Milton, I read way over my head, but I read the Maupassant,
Oh, yeah.
The dirty stories. And then Mother had, you know, sets of these, all the different artists. And I read every book in the thing. And I remember coming to Grandpa one time saying that they branded, in de Maupassant, they branded this girl. And I said, what was that for? That she had chicken pox or something? And Grandpa said, no, no, she didn't have chicken, not exactly. And of course it was because she was a prostitute.
Uh-huh.
And I said, well, what did she have? He didn't know how to get out of that one. And of course, he said it was some sort of a thing, I don't know exactly what she had, but, you know, I got it. And of course I kept pestering, and then he finally said, because she was, of course, he made the mistake of saying brother, and I said, what's that? You know? And of course, he said that's a sort of a woman that doesn't behave herself. And I said, you mean like me? No, he said, for God's sake, no. And then I went and said to Mother, you know, Grandpa thinks I'm a closet. What? And, Papa, what are you saying to the child? I mean, she's only a child. What are you saying? And he said,
Quite the misunderstanding.
Yeah.
I guess. Well, thank you so much, Grandma. That was really fun to talk to you.
There were all kinds of funny things. You know. But he when he came up to the farm, he always took me with him over to, and he'd, you know, dozens of cows, the black and white cows, Holsteins, and he'd say, go see if that is number 23. My God, it would be, you know, they're all black and white.
And he would know all the cows.
He knew them. You know, he really, very seldom wrong. He knew that's number 23, and that, you know.
Well, he probably had to learn a lot of names in the restaurant, too, with the regulars coming in.
And he knew the cows. That was my bull, so. And he knew, you know, amazing, you know, really, when I think about it now.
Yeah.
But then I didn't think much of it. You know, I just thought, that's my grandfather.
Yeah, of course.
He knows everything, you know.
Absolutely.
He wouldn't let, if Mother got mad at me, you know, she had terrible temper. And she'd spank you and how, you know. And say, don't touch the child, she hasn't hurt you. Shouldn't have done it. And Mother said, and then he said, well, I'll cut off your allowance. That makes it.
That got the job done, yeah.
Because she, you know, she'd get mad about something, not too awful or anything that she did, and she'd pick you up and finish. You know, she really wallowed him.
Wow.
And she had a terrible temper, and he knew that. You know, so if he was up Milton, I was safe. But when he was away, oh boy, I watched what I did because I didn't get hell. You know. And when they came up for the weekend, you know, when I'd hear the thing coming up the driveway, I'd run around to the kitchen entrance, and there was a sort of a tree there, a nice tree, and I'd go behind the tree, and I'd spit on my shoes, you know, and rub them, and of course they'd shine for a minute.
Uh-huh.
Black patent leather, you know, those little ones the kids wear with the little thing.
Right.
And then I'd go to meet them at the door. But of course the thing didn't last, but I didn't know that, I guess, you know.
It looked good for, you know, in the first
yeah. And I was all dressed when I'd been a filthy dirty all week, but Margaret used to let me get away with that. Of course, when they came, I was dressed up like a...
to the nines.
Yeah. The little white dress, you'd think I was innocent. Margaret used to go out with her beau. She'd take me along because she wanted to go out with her beau, but she didn't want to leave me alone in the house.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd get on the back seat, and she'd have a pillow there, and I'd go to sleep, you know. And of course, she didn't tell Mother's story, because Mother'd say, "What do you mean, taking the child out at 11 o'clock? Up at 11 o'clock." That's when she'd have a fit.
Right.
But sleeping and going on, you know. And to the movies, which of course I'd never seen a movie, and Margaret would take me to the movies and things.
Right.
She wanted to go with her beau, and so she'd take me. And I was fascinated.
Absolutely.
And of course, kids you don't know, and you know, somebody would say, "This movie was good," and I said, "Yeah, it was awfully nice." You remember when the bear came down the hill or something? And Mother'd say, "How do you know about the bear?" "Oh, I saw it in the magazine." I could lie. I knew how to lie even then, you know. Yeah.
Wow.
Oh my God, it was funny. When you look back.
Definitely, definitely. Well, yeah. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. It was great to get to know some of the
For real,
memories.
the dope, the dirty dope.
Absolutely, absolutely.